Hi, folks. I'm Peter Lemieux. I'm from Rounding Third and Batter Sports, and I tell baseball stories. And today is an amazing story, okay? Most baseball fans and several non-baseball fans are familiar with the movie The Natural, starring Robert Redford. Now, spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you about the movie, okay? But if you haven't seen it, I still recommend that you have an enjoyable time watching it with your favorite adult beverage and some peanuts. That would be a great way to watch it. But this is a story about fiction. It's all fiction. There's this guy named Roy Hobbs who never existed, right? Roy Hobbs is the best baseball player ever. And he's coming up and undoubtedly is going to make the big leagues and set all kinds of records. And as he's just preparing to make the big leagues, a woman gets into his room and shoots him. She was insane. She was a stalker. She jumps off the balcony and kills herself. But the story is, it ended Roy Hobbs' career before it ever started. Roy couldn't play because he had a bullet in him. And the doctor said if he played, he could kill himself. So he didn't. But later in life, I assume somewhere in his mid to late 30s, the ache in his heart to give it a try comes through, and he tries to make it into the big time and really kind of talks his way onto a team, and they stick him on the bench. He's just an old guy, right? Circumstances happen and Roy gets to play. And miraculously, Roy is amazing. He's hitting home runs people have never seen before, and he's doing wonderfully, and everything is glorious. But Hollywood has to make a dramatic ending. As the movie's coming to an end, Roy is coming to a big game and told he can't play. I'm not going to go into the details, watch the movie. But for him to play, he really risks his life. Furthermore, his bat, called Wonder Boy, is ruined when it gets hit by lightning. And so Roy is coming up for the biggest at bat of the season, typical Hollywood ending, right? A boy comes out with a bat that Roy helped him make somewhere during the movie. So using the little boy's bat, batting left-handed, Roy Hobbs, Robert Redford, great ending to the movie. Spoiler alert, he hits a dramatic home run, breaks the scoreboard. Everything's going crazy. The fans are going nuts, and it's the end to a great comeback about a myth, about a man who never existed. Or did he? My friends, welcome to Batter Sports, because I'm going to tell you a story that's going to contend that perhaps Roy Hobbs really did exist. Bernard Malamud wrote the story of The Natural, and it's pretty well accepted that he knew the story I'm going to tell you. There was a player in the 1940s named Eddie Waitkus. Eddie Waitkus, my friends, is the natural, and no one has ever heard of him. That's not true, nobody. There are some people who know of Eddie Waitkus, but let's tell his story. For 11 years, he played in the major leagues, interrupted by World War II. He played for the Cubs, the Phillies, the Orioles. He was on the National League All-Star team in both 1948 and 49. He was a first baseman. He played a lot. He was a good hitter. But his career was interrupted when he had to go to World War II. World War II, he fought in the Philippines. He was awarded a Bronze Star. During Operation Cartwheel, Waitkus saved the life of a badly bleeding fellow soldier, leaving his foxhole during an attack. and finding some safety pins to stop the guy's bleeding. He was a war hero. So he didn't just stop playing baseball to go to the war, he was a war hero. Then he returned to baseball with the Cubs, became a very popular figure in Chicago because the guy was college educated. He could speak Lithuanian, Polish, German, and French, and of course, English. 5 languages, 4 more than I can speak. And he was a very good first baseman on the All Star teams in both 48 and 49. After the 48 season, the Cubs traded him to the Philadelphia Phillies. More about the Phillies in a second. In 1949, about mid year, a crazy woman named Ruth Ann Steinhagen, obsessed with Eddie Waitkus, called him to her room in the Chicago Edgewater Beach Hotel, saying that she was in deep trouble and she needed him to come up. She had become infatuated with him when he was a Cub, and she sought him every day of the season that she could. So Eddie, being a good guy, went to check on this woman. When he arrived in her room, she shot him with a 25 caliber rifle, called the police, and when they got there, she was holding him and crying. Ruth never went to prison. She was immediately put in a mental hospital where she stayed. But Eddie had to fight for his life in the Illinois Masonic Hospital. He nearly died several times. A bullet in him. Are we getting a story here? Okay. After being shot, he did not play again the rest of the 1949 season, even though he was hitting .306 for the Phillies. They had a Eddie Waitkus night at Shibe Park in Philadelphia in August, where they showered him with gifts because he was a good player, a major stay in the Phillies who couldn't play. Well, in 1950, Eddie returned. I hope you're getting the story here. 1950, you may not know this. The Philadelphia Phillies went to the World Series in 1915 and never went again. Now it's 1950. They haven't been in a World Series for 35 years. They are fielding the youngest team in baseball. This team's average age was 26. At that time, that was ridiculously young. They called them the Whiz Kids, and they played really well. Eddie Waitkus was a major part of this team. Fans, as you can imagine, stormed back to the ballpark, cheering for the Whiz Kids, and went completely crazy when they actually won the pennant, beating the Dodgers by 2 games and going to the World Series. Now, unfortunately, unlike Hollywood, they didn't win the World Series. But let's just talk about Eddie Waitkus coming back from being shot. In 1950, with the Whiz Kids, Eddie played in all 154 games and batted .283, never missing a game. And so he became a hero in Philadelphia, right? Maybe not across the nation because they didn't win the World Series, but if you have a team that's never been to the World Series in your lifetime, and this guy got shot, comes back, plays every game, and bats .283, Eddie Waitkus is the real life Robert Redford, Roy Hobbs natural. His story is the one Malamud used to write his book. Yes, Eddie Waitkus. He retired from baseball, died at the age of 53 due to cancer. But let's face the facts, folks. Eddie Waitkus has a major part of baseball history, accentuated by the fact those of us living today who've seen the natural and know that this story, while it's myth, was made up on a true story. A baseball player actually got shot by a crazy woman and was dying in a hospital and came back and took a team that hadn't won a pennant in 35 years and got them to the World Series. He and other players, of course, they had good players, revived baseball in the city of Philadelphia like never before. The Phillies became so popular that the other team, the Philadelphia Athletics, they dropped and eventually had to move out of town because they couldn't draw fans anymore. I want all of you to remember Eddie Waitkus more than Roy Hobbs, because this was a true story. And it's just amazing that we have this very popular movie that everybody loves and believes it's total fiction. Well, maybe Wonder Boy and the dramatic home run in the last game is fiction, but the story's not. So I offer you today the story of Eddie Waitkus. Let's not forget him, and let's remember him as he deserves. Got shot, and the next year brought a team to a pennant that the city hadn't seen in 35 years. Folks, that's my story. Peter Lemieux, Batter Sports. Like, subscribe, tell your friends about this. Tell me your story. I'll tell you this. There was another player who got shot by a crazy woman, but it was before, and I didn't think it related as well as Eddie Waitkus to the natural. But sometimes what we see as fiction actually stems from real life stories. So I want all you to have a great day. Love baseball, greatest sport ever invented, and I'll see you around next time. Have a great one.